A toddler falls into a gorilla habitat, and panic erupts, but instead of attacking, the grieving silverback does something that leaves everyone in shock, revealing the depths of animal emotion and maternal instinct. The gorilla habitat had always been a popular spot, but today something felt off. Zara, the usually lively silverback, wasn't engaging in her usual playfulness. She remained still at the far end, absent-mindedly chewing on a branch, her deep eyes lost in thought. Normally she would swing, climb, and even playfully interact with visitors, but today when the children called her name, she didn't so much as look in their direction. Outside the enclosure, the small group of humans enjoyed their antics. They laughed, and the adults carried their children on their shoulders for them to enjoy it better. Liam's mother tried to focus on the gorillas, but her restless toddler had other plans. Liam, don't climb that, she warned. He didn't listen. His small fingers gripped the railing as he leaned forward, wide-eyed with wonder. Then he peeped into the enclosure. Seeing the creatures seemed to justify his disobedience in his little brain, because his eyes grew wide, his tiny mouth formed an odd O, and he disobeyed even more by bending further. Then disaster. 1 second Liam was gripping the railing, the next he was gone. A tiny gasp, a blur of movement, then a dull thud. Silence. Liam, his mother's scream pierced the air. Heads turned, gasps filled the crowd. Then came the sound no one wanted to hear, a heavy muffled thud. Oh God! Liam, the mother cried out again as she spotted her child lying face down. He didn't appear injured, but he was clearly too stunned to move. He had just plummeted 20 ft. My baby, she screamed once more, desperately calling for the zookeepers. The zoo staff rushed toward the enclosure immediately and looked in. We will get him out, ma'am, they assured the woman, and she nodded, clutching her necklace. A few people judged her for turning her eyes away, but they did not say it out loud. Liam's mother was restless. She knew the zookeepers were doing something, but she needed to try to get her baby too. She looked up to search for any opening she could run through, and her eyes connected with the eyes of the massive 400B gorilla at the far end of the enclosure. Zara's head jerked toward the sound. The branch slipped from her mouth, then she moved. The ground shook with each of her heavy steps. Somebody stop, stop her, stop her, the mother finally screamed, finding her voice a zookeeper who had returned with the keys to the enclosure and some sticks. Immediately bolted to the emergency room for a tranquilizer rifle. The mother went into full pain panic mode. She stretched her trembling hands out as if she could elevate them and pluck her baby from this nightmare, but Zara did not stop, and everyone in the growing crowd froze as they watched what looked like an unfolding nightmare. Some women began to cry, a few others managed to turn away. What do you think will happen before the zookeepers could arrive? Zara was already standing over the baby. Her body was so large it even blocked out the sun. The crowd tensed, preparing for the worst. Every parent instinctively held their child closer, anticipating an attack, but it never came. Instead, Zara, the 400-pound silverback with hands powerful enough to shatter bone, did something unimaginable. She did not lash out. She did not bare her teeth. She did not roar. Her massive hand curled gently around the boy's tiny body, and she picked him up. She lifted him with a delicateness that seemed impossible for a creature of her size. Jaws dropped in the crowd. A few who had their eyes shut opened them only. The mother still looked on in alarm. She let out a whimper as she watched her baby disappear into the grasp of something wild, something untamed. But Zara did not hurt him. Liam blinked up at the creature holding him. His frame looked tiny in her hands. His lips quivered, and for a moment it looked like he was going to cry, but then Zara did something even more unexpected. She gently cradled him against her chest. Zara rocked the child with care, and as if that weren't astonishing enough, a deep guttural sound rumbled from her throat, not a growl, not a warning, but something softer, a hug, a lullaby of sorts. She even pressed her broad lips to his forehead in what could only be described as a kiss. Liam's mother flinched. Oh God, please! At this time the zookeepers had returned with their radios and tranquilizer guns, but none of them had expected to meet this. One of them turned to the still shaking mother and tried to calm her. She's comforting him, he pointed out. But why? An experienced zookeeper understood the reason immediately and turned to the crowd. What do you think? He asked. Zara's baby died. Someone answered. His name was Mitchell, and he had worked with Zara for years and had watched her grow into a powerful matriarch. He had seen her break up fights between the other gorillas and protect the little ones from danger, and he had seen her grieve just last month. Zara had lost her baby, and illness had killed him, and she had carried the small, lifeless body for days, refusing to let go. When the zookeepers had finally managed to take it away, she went rogue. Since then, she had huddled in the corners of the enclosure, looking for something that was no longer there now. She thought she had found it. A new kind of silence settled on the crowd. With that revelation, they all realized they were witnessing grief. The violent scene they had all anticipated quickly changed to a tragic one, and they all stared at Zara with pity. But the scene quickly changed again, from pity to worry, when they realized something else. She was not letting Liam go for a fleeting moment. Zara filled them with hope. She moved toward the iron fence, and everyone held their breath, believing she was about to return the child. But instead she turned and circled back. Again the crowd anxiously urged the zookeepers to act, hoping they could gently persuade Zara to set Liam down. Yet the zookeepers knew they had to proceed with extreme caution. If they moved too quickly, if they startled her, she would feel threatened and fight back, and a mother protecting her child, whether human or beast, was the most dangerous thing in the world. Suddenly Liam shifted and looked around. Then he made a sound. Mama! His mother couldn't hold it any longer, and she burst into tears. A zookeeper felt so sorry for her that he made a terrible mistake. Oh, he took a step toward the gate. Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. He did it slowly, but it was enough to cause havoc. What do you think the gorilla would do? Zara's head snapped up and her lips pulled back, revealing ivory canines. Then she turned and ran away from them to the rocky part of the enclosure. The crowd gasped again, and Mitchell felt his stomach drop. No, not up. Anything but up. Then Zara began to climb with a powerful push. She lifted herself to a higher ledge. She's taking him, someone cried out. Liam's mother broke into sobs. The mother's shriek sliced through the air. No, please stop, don't take my baby. But Zara was swift. She climbed higher and higher, scaling the rocky ledge while clutching the child to her chest. Zara! No! One of the zookeepers shouted, but she did not stop. The higher she went, the more panic spread through the crowd. They knew if Liam mistakenly slipped from her hands, he would not survive the fall. If she lost her grip, or if he slipped, they refused to let the thought take hold. Mitchell's radio crackled to life. We have a clear shot. Take her down. Mitchell hesitated, his fingers hovering over the button. Zara turned and her dark eyes met his. They were pleading, but he shook his head. If they took Zara out, she would definitely drop Liam, and they couldn't have that. He gritted his teeth. Hold your fire. But the voice argued. I said hold. Zara hoisted herself higher onto The second ledge now nearly 20 feet in the air, so Mitchell turned to the other keepers around him. Options now, he commanded. What if we one started to suggest, but a sudden sharp crack cut him off. They spun around to see Zara had reached the next rock, but a loose stone had crumbled beneath her foot. Mitchell's pulse thundered in his ears. One more ledge. She was soon at the top. As for Liam, he had settled comfortably in the warmth of the gorilla. His shock from the fall was slowly wearing off, and he was now marveling at the birds that flew past them as they climbed down below. His mother was still screaming. She was in full panic now. She was pressing against the railing as if she could break down the iron walls into the enclosure. The zookeepers were frantic. We could lure her back down, another zookeeper suggested. Mitchell's wheels turned fast. He liked that plan now. He knew what to do. He felt for something special in his pocket and found it. Open the side gate, Mitchell ordered. Keys jingled as they were retrieved, and the gate creaked open. Mitchell stepped forward, and the crowd erupted in anxious whispers. What is he doing? He's going in there. Oh my God, he's going to get himself killed. But Liam's mother looked at him with hope. Please, she whispered, please bring him back. Mitchell swallowed hard, and then he entered the enclosure. The gate clicked shut behind him. He wasted no time and walked down to the rock. Zara, he screamed, but the gorilla did not react. Instead, she took another step. The child's tiny legs dangled in Zara's hold. The risk was too much, but he took another step. Then he took the object from his pocket. It was a faded blue blanket, worn at the edges but folded carefully. It was Zara's blanket, the same one she had wrapped around her baby in the weeks before he died. She looked down, and Mitchell saw the shift, the hesitation, and the confusion in her eyes. She knew that blanket she had held. It buried her face in it and inhaled the scent of her baby. Now Mitchell extended the blanket in the air. It's yours, sweetheart, Mitchell said softly. All he wanted was for her to come down. Zara's nostrils flared as she took in the scene. She looked at the boy cradled in her arms. Then she glanced down at the blanket. For a moment the world held its breath as she made her decision. Then, with a deep rumbling grunt, Zara hesitated for a moment before shifting her weight. Her massive foot pressed against the rocky ledge, testing it. Then slowly she took her first step downward. Mitchell felt an enormous wave of relief flood through his chest, as if he had been holding his breath this entire time. He barely dared to believe what he was witnessing. The entire crowd was frozen in place, their collective hope hinging on every deliberate movement. Zara made every parent watching clutched their child a little tighter. Every zookeeper stayed perfectly still, knowing that one wrong move could send everything spalling into disaster. Liam's mother was gripping the iron railing so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. Her lips moved rapidly, murmuring something over and over again, a prayer, her son name maybe. Both. Zara continued her descent, each step careful, each movement deliberate. Mitchell kept his voice steady, gentle, encouraging. That's a good girl, Zara. That's right, you're doing great. Her powerful hands gripped the rock, her body lowering ever so cautiously closer. The distance between her and the ground was shrinking. 20 feet, 15, 10. Mitchell felt his heart pounding, counting the moments. The air was thick with tension. Then finally Zara's feet touched solid ground. A collective sigh of relief spread through the crowd, though no one dared to cheer just yet. The hardest part was over, but what would she do next? Mitchell took a careful step forward, and another one of the zookeepers threw in an orange, Zara's favorite. Mitchell picked it up and held it out to Zara. The gorilla's nostrils flared at first, but her grip on the child tightened. Then she walked up to him and reached for the Fruit. That single movement was all Mitchell needed. He lunged, and his arms wrapped around the toddler, yanking him free from Zara's grasp. A scream ripped through the crowd. It was the mother, crying out in pure relief. The crowd erupted with shouts, their fear turning into astonishment. She sprinted toward the locked gate, desperate to reach her child. Mitchell turned and ran Liam away from Zara's warmth. Finally began to cry. His tiny hands clutched Mitchell's shirt as he sprinted for the gate. His mother was already there. She fell to her knees, grabbed her baby, and burst into tears. She pulled him against her chest and pressed kisses to his hair and cheeks. Anywhere she could reach. My baby, she wept. Oh my God, my baby, thank you. She thanked Mitchell. Mitchell smiled as he straightened up, his heart still beating fast. Liam was safe inside the enclosure. Zara stood motionless with the blanket and the orange, her deep eyes locked on the child. Her dark eyes flicked between Mitchell and the mother, who was clutching her child tightly. She had lost a child again. Mitchell swallowed hard. He had known from the start that this wasn't an attack. Zara was a grieving mother, desperately trying to fill the emptiness inside her. He turned to the other keepers and caught their damp eyes as they watched Zara grieve quietly. Zara turned, no anger, no fight, just loss. Then she vanished into the shadows. Outside the zoo, the news went viral, and the video some in the crowd took made the rounds, even to TV stations. They played the dramatic rescue on repeat, and everyone who watched it was in awe. It sparked many debates about gorilla intelligence. A few did not expect them to be that smart or display so much emotional intelligence. It also sparked conversations on maternal grief, while some people called for stricter zoo regulations. Others demanded Zara be released to a sanctuary, and some, perhaps the ones who truly understood, saw what Mitchell and the other keepers had seen: a mother's pain. Reporters visited the zoo too eager for interviews. Mitchell refused most of them, but he did release a statement. Zara was not attacking, she was mourning. That single line echoed across social media. People shared stories of their own losses. They also shared stories of grieving animals they had met. Many sent gifts and donated money to the zoo just because of Zara. Some wrote letters urging the zoo to help her, so the zoo board held an emergency meeting to discuss Zara's future. What could they do to help her recover? Finally, they made a decision. They found a baby gorilla for her. The gorilla was orphaned, helpless, and sad, much like Zara. When the crate door opened and the small gorilla stumbled into the enclosure, Zara did not hesitate. She moved to the infant, and the baby let out a tiny nervous sound. She reached out, pulled it close, and gave it a hug. The keepers exhaled in relief. It had worked. Some in the crowd wiped away tears. Zara was a mother once more. Her story reminds us of the profound pain that grief, especially the loss of a child, can bring. It also shows us that motherhood is universal, a bond that connects all living beings, whether animal or human. Did you enjoy this story? Do you believe that animals experience deep emotions like grief and maternal love just as we humans do? Let us know in the comments below. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. The pain of loss and the instinct to protect our universal feelings. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Have a fantastic day.